I'm John McMullan, Montgomery County Tea Party Vetting Committee Chair, and we are interviewing John McMullan tonight for position 5 on the Woodlands Township Board of Directors. With me is Pat Tibbs, President of MCTP, Dennis Tibbs, Brian Crumby, Kim Vaughn is Board Chair, and Larry Rogers, Vice President. So with that, why don't we start and you kick it off, and you got up to 5 minutes to do the opening, and then we'll get into the questions.
Great. Well, I'm not going to take 5 minutes for an opening. I am John McMullan. I'm seeking re-election to the Township Board of the Woodlands. And the reason I'm seeking re-election is because the Woodlands is at a critical juncture here. And we need, on our board, we need more directors with a proven record of putting the interest of residents ahead of the interest of the politically well-connected. When I say the politically well-connected, specifically I mean the interest of county politicians or the interest of politically connected real estate developers. And having served for 2 years, what you'll see is a fairly large percentage of votes in the Woodlands are unanimous. But where it really counts to have a thoughtful person who puts the interests of residents first is where there's a split. And I think if you examine my voting record over the past 2 years, be it standing up for the residents and opposing the deeply flawed May 2015 road bond, my full support of Matthew Burton's successful effort to alter the clear-cutting practices of the Woodlands, and my ongoing efforts to stop the expensive and experimental transit center within town center that disproportionately benefits the very small percentage of residents who live in town center, and critically those who own undeveloped land in town center. And what this is a record of putting residents first. That's what I'm going to do again if reelected, and I hope to earn your support.
All right, great. Okay, start off the Q&A part. I'll go ahead and kick that off. Under question 1, 3 main reasons you're running for office. Your third part is we must prepare for future incorporation and should begin the process of reserving funds for future expenses now. How much would you think would be appropriate?
It's hard to answer that question, honestly, because we don't know what the ultimate sum is. So we had a study done in 2011 or 2012 that, in my opinion, grossly overestimated the cost of incorporation. So what we know, John, is yes, there's a positive cost. I think if we do nothing, if we literally do nothing here, what's going to happen is if we continue to elect thoughtful people, we're going to keep cutting the tax rate. Eventually that tax rate will go to 0 and our residents will never support incorporation. And so what I think we need to do is we need to, 1, try to get a real sense as to what the costs are. We don't know what that number is yet, but it's a positive number. And simultaneously, when we have one-off, sort of one-time surpluses, we need to take a portion of that money and start saving. So
How much would you advocate for that?
of the one-off surpluses?
Yeah, the one-off.
Well, see, what's hard about it is we don't know what the number we're aiming towards yet, because we don't have a real. The Woodlands Township Board does not have a real estimate as what the total cost of incorporation is yet, and so the danger of just refunding one-off surpluses is in the very next year you could end up raising taxes or failing. That word misrepresents taxes. You could end up not even cutting the tax rate, which of course with home values going up, that's a tax increase. So John, I think we don't, there's not a good honest answer to that question because we don't know what the true cost is yet. That's one of the first things we need to do. We need to get our hands on what that number is. We need to understand that and then start building up a reserve to ease that transition.
Okay, I didn't know if there was a cap that you had in mind for that, not a target that you shoot for.
Yeah, we need more information.
Yeah, okay.
You say that the township is at a critical place. What do you know about Montgomery County's debt?
It's high. It's high. I mean, my sense is that these guys have not done a very good job. And my opinion, is they have mismanaged the county's business for some time. And we have to look at our roads, and we have to look at some of the facts surrounding the Joe Corley situation, though, that we're not getting the best governance. And I've been very public in my criticism of Judge Doyle and Commissioner Riley. So do I have tremendous faith that they've done a good job? Of course not. Of course not. Am I concerned about the direction of the county? Absolutely.
But just real quick, did you know how much debt the county has and how we stand in relation to other Texas counties?
Yeah, I don't know that exact number. I know we're high. I know that if you look at it on a per capita basis, I think we're second or third highest in the county, in the state. Now, on one hand, when you have a growing county like ours, you can argue that a higher than average debt load may make sense. I don't think you can convince me that we're at the right point today. And that's a function of public policy. Who we elect matters. Who we elect for local races, for county races, for statewide races, it all counts. And I think if you look back on, if you look at these most recent elections, you can see the candidates that won are not governing in a way that I think best serves the taxpayers.
But let's continue a little bit about the incorporation. From what you said just a second ago, it almost sounded like you wanted to defer any tax reductions or refunds so that you can keep the residents agreeable to accept an incorporation.
Yeah, I would not agree with that. That's not how I characterize it. So you budget, you have a recurring amount of revenues that exceed expenses year after year after year. When it's recurring like that, what you should do with that money is you should cut the taxes and return it to the taxpayers. Now, sometimes what you have is unexpectedly high good year in sales tax or hotel tax money that you really don't know if it's going to repeat itself. It's a little dangerous, Dennis, to take that money on a one-time basis and say, oh, we've got to unexpectedly raise $500,000 more. Let's take that $500,000 more, that $500,000 and issue a $500,000 worth of tax cut that year. Because if that same unexpected amount doesn't appear the next year, now you're raising the tax rate. And so no, I wouldn't agree with that characterization. What we should do is when we have one-off surpluses, we should take some fraction of that and begin a reserve fund. But it's hard, as I said earlier, to know what the right amount is to aim for because the study we have is not very informative. It's not.
Okay.
So I guess I'm a little confused. You mentioned that your concern was that the residents' taxes would go down to zero and that would be a bad thing.
Not
So-
quite. No. Here's the challenge, okay? So if let's say literally nothing happens in terms of planning for incorporation.
Okay.
And say we elect thoughtful people that spend responsibly and continue to cut taxes. If you get to a point 20 or 30 years from now where the tax rate the Woodlands controls is zero,
Okay.
and we've made no plans for incorporation, I think it's going to be a very hard sell to convince residents that they should not become a part of the city of Houston. A very hard sell because there are
So why would they want to become part of Houston?
Because if we don't incorporate by 2050 something, the city of Houston has the right to annex us.
Well, I understand that, but why do you think that people would say, well, yeah, let's do it ourselves instead of let those terrible people down there control us? That's what they're going to say.
I don't understand your question.
Why
That's
are
precisely
you-
what I'm trying to prevent. I don't want us to be part of the city of Houston.
Why do you fear that the citizens would accept becoming annexed?
Because it's not up to the citizens of the way the citizens of the Woodlands can stop themselves from being annexed is either A, to incorporate,
I
or
understand.
B, to get some sort of legislative change.
Okay, I understand
The
that.
third option is if you do nothing, I think it is likely at some point down the road.
So the tax rate or nothing,
Mhm.
20 or 30 years down the road, so you go, okay, our little contract with the city is up. You have a choice. Do you want to be annexed by them, or do you want to create our own little thing here?
Yeah, and
They're going to create our own little thing here, let them go play their game somewhere else, every time.
I think that's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
I think that if you stipulate, a lot of people in the Woodlands don't live there for 20, 30 years. if you say, all right, you're gonna have a 0 tax rate today, or you can incorporate and have a, pick a number, 40, 50 cent tax rate, I think you'll see that there'll be some resistance. Now, we're speculating what was gonna happen 30 or 40 years from now.
Okay.
But I think instead what we should do is we should take one-off, non-recurring surpluses and begin to ease that transition.
Did, just real quick before we go to Ken, the township bought property, right?
Correct.
For that, and where was that located again?
Lake Robbins at, Grogan's Mill at Lake Woodlands.
Okay, okay. All right.
So you're running for re-election.
Correct.
This is your second term though, right?
I'm in my first term. I'm wrapping
Yeah.
up my first term.
Okay. And did you hold any elected office before that?
No.
Okay. You were against the May 9th road bond, as I understand it.
Correct. I wrote an op-ed, got a lot of attention.
Do you have a position on the November road bond?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen today, I'm opposed to it, and the reason is twofold. One, I am troubled by, I guess, 3 things. One, the sort of pattern of mismanagement we've seen from Judge Doyle and Commissioner Riley. Second, as everyone in this room knows, there's a criminal investigation going on. I don't want to inject myself into that or speculate how that's going to turn out, but it is a fact that that investigation is going on. And from afar, it does not look like it's, however that splashes down, it does not look like a complete fabrication. It looks like there's at least, not saying anyone's guilty or innocent, but at least there was some basis for that. And then third, Judge Doyle, he chose to make a comment in the media that he was still going to build the Woodlands Parkway extension. He then was communicating with Director Hausman and insisted he's still going to do it. And that is concerning to me as someone who represents the Woodlands. It's especially concerning that what they're going to do, if that extension is built, they're going to dump thousands of additional cars onto Woodlands Parkway. And as someone that travels that road every day, I've got to tell you, it is already way over capacity. Way over capacity. And so if that's going to happen, the county needs to make the necessary accommodations to provide some measure of relief for that road. They have not done, to the best of my knowledge, they have not done so. So those are the 2 or 3 reasons why I'm opposed.
Okay. We have,
Go. I answer quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
How long that road bond must continue then? You said you'd be opposed to the November road bond, realizing that it takes probably 2 years before anything really happens if it was approved.
Mm-hmm.
Considering that, and considering the deficit that we're in terms of fixing needed roads that really do need fixing, and doing new ones, you don't think that should override your thinking there?
No, I don't. Here's why. It would be one thing if the county's position was that, we're going to build this anyways. I think that's a mistake. But if they were adamant about that, as they appear to be, and they said to the Woodlands, I represent the Woodlands, they said to the Woodlands, we are going to address your issue as best we can by providing the funding to expand Woodlands Parkway from Kirkendall 2078. And if that was done in a above-board, transparent manner, I'd support it for precisely the reason you suggest. Our area does need roads. I'm not one of these no-government conservatives. I'm a smart government conservative. And so particularly for some folks in other parts of the county that are just choking on traffic, their frustration is real, and I get it. Okay? I am extraordinarily frustrated myself, having traveled Woodlands Parkway every day. There has been a failure of leadership here. Competence matters, and it is, we just haven't got it. So yeah, I would like to support a road bond. I would very much like to support a road bond, but it's got to be the right road bond, and if they're going to harm the Woodlands, I'm going to oppose it.
Jumping now back to the incorporation, what's your feeling on a time frame that we should start preparing for it?
Well, I think we should start preparing basically immediately. The harder question is, when do you incorporate? And we don't have the information today to give a good answer to that question, because we don't know the cost.
Is there a study in progress right now
No.
to evaluate that? So they're going off of the study that was
2011 or
what,
2012, it
couple of years
forecasted a
ago?
75% tax increase. What they did, the way it gets reported is that it's a 75% tax increase. People don't, it wasn't reported correctly that it was going to be a 75% increase on the Woodlands Township portion of people's taxes, rather than the entirety of their tax bill. So I think there was some bad information out there.
the steer tactic.
Perhaps, but, well, you get to, if you look at how the Woodlands has cut, my 2 years on the board, we cut the tax rate 22%. That's a real tax cut. Other governments don't do that. So, if we keep cutting taxes like, the tax rate like this, it may be the case that the percentage increase goes up just because you're starting from a much lower number. But it wouldn't be 75% of all your taxes or 50% of all your taxes. It's only the Woodlands portion of your taxes, which right now, at 23 cents, is probably 7 or 8% of the average person's tax bill.
Okay. Question 4. Should township director serve at large or represent specific villages or districts? You indicated you support geographical rather than at large. Why?
Well, I think it's so I believe the population has to be equal. So it can't be that you have one director for College Park, one director for Alden Bridge, and so on and so forth, because the populations are different. I think the real question is, are we going to get better governance if we have individual directors representing particular areas? I tend to think yes. Just, you're more responsive. You know more of those residents. I know more residents in the areas where my children go to school than I do in other parts of the world. That's just reality. Those are the people you interact with on a daily basis. You have more contact with. Now, what I'm also open to is something like you see in the city of Houston, where you've got a number of city council people there where they represent a district, and there's some number, I don't know the exact amount, that are at large. I think I'd be fine with that too. But I think you would tend to get better government if you have people, at least a majority of the board, tied to a specific geographical area.
Do you think you would have gotten the board to vote against the road bond in May had it been district-based? So as it was, everyone was concerned about the whole township. You make it district-based, they may not have the concern of the backside.
Well, we didn't have the concern this time either, right? I mean, we had 3 votes. I mean, that's fair, but, I believe in representative democracy. I think you get better government the closer to the people they are. That doesn't mean there's not a place for at-large seats. There probably is. But in the example you gave, Ken, it didn't turn out that way.
That's true, right.
It was very unfortunate. We really had. How out of touch are these folks? This was not a close vote. And, I think I was the first public official to oppose this, followed in very, very short order by Gordy and Peggy. And I wasn't putting my finger up in the air trying to think, is this politically popular? I certainly hoped we were going to win it. But, I represent the Woodlands. And in my view, extending Woodlands Parkway was not in the best interest of the Woodlands. We shouldn't be asked to spend millions of our tax dollars to make our traffic worse. And you can't ignore the fact that who owned that land between 2978 and 249. You just can't. And if that is politically incorrect, people that own
It's
that
not
land,
politically incorrect.
they aren't voting for me.
Honest, yeah.
I mean, I get it. There are candidates that are much closer with the real estate developers than I am.
They fund a lot of other campaigns.
Yeah. There are some services or some some items that the township provides, such as water taxis. I even think of the trolleys that I always see empty. And these seems to me like those should be private sector type businesses. But yet the Woodlands now, from what I understand, the township is considering buying and doing their own ice rink and their swimming pool, and even a museum someone was talking about. What do you think of this amount of spending that they're thinking about doing?
Sure, well, you raised a lot of different issues there. So first, on the water taxis, I'm opposed to them. They're unprofitable, they're underwhelming. I'm not going to vote to spend any more money on this. Second, the ice rink, I absolutely do support that. I think that is more akin, the Woodlands is a high amenity place. We spend a lot of money on parks, a lot of money on pools, a lot of money on our pathways. The ice rink, in my view, is a real attraction. It's part of the charm of the Woodlands, and I am proud of the fact that I absolutely supported providing a permanent home for that. What?
Is it
Did the money make?
No, absolutely not. Either our parks, either our pools, either our pathways. It's amenity. And what we tend to do with our pools is we tend to get about roughly half of the cost. About half the cost is passed on to all the taxpayers. The ice rink is more or less in line with that. But it is absolutely not a money maker. If anyone suggests it as, they're misinformed.
So what's
It's
the
an
difference
amenity.
between them and boats?
The boats are here's a big difference. Who do you know that has ridden boats that just walks off there saying, that was just a great time? I can't wait to get back on those boats. Okay, the answer is no. The ice rink, that is a big thing for children in the Woodlands, just as are the swimming pools. And I think the way to frame up that is, this is a wintertime. View this as akin to a wintertime swimming pool. And this is an attraction that is greatly used by residents of the Woodlands, and yes, of course, people outside the Woodlands also. The water taxis, that is not a real transportation to John. That's a joke. It's not a serious statement that those water taxis that travel at a pace probably slower than any of us could walk are a real transportation.
What's the cost to go skating? Ice skating?
I think it's $5 or $6, I'm not sure.
Oh, I thought it was more than that. I mean, I've taken my grandkids over the 20 years, I think
What's
twice.
the cost to ride a boat?
5.
One quick question on the ice rink. Is it possible that after having an ice rink 12 months out of the year, that it would be, after a while, I've been there, done that. Whereas if you keep it once a year, it's I'm waiting for that ice rink.
Yeah, well, that's really what we've done, actually. The ice rink is not a permanent, so what we've done is the permanent ice rink is going to be situated adjacent to the pavilion. And the Woodlands Township is going to have the right to use that roughly 3 months out of the year. 9 months out of the year is going to be used by the pavilion for events during concert season. And part of the reason we
So
had to do this.
it won't be available for kids unless it's a pavilion.
No, well, it'll be available for kids during skating season. And then I believe we have 8 or 9 days throughout the year, if there's not a concert, where the township will have the right, if we can devise some program that we think will have appeal, to use it then. But really what it is it's roughly a 3-month attraction.
3 months.
Okay, a few more questions about the annexation. Do you have any idea of what the tax Houston would impose on the Woodlands, or what the Woodlands tax would be if they incorporated? And if they were to incorporate you, would Houston take an entire strip from Houston to here? And what would happen to the ice rink if you were part of Houston?
I think nothing would change with the ice rink. The question is, what is the city of Houston's tax rate? If they annex us, well, we would pay the same. If we become part of the city of Houston, we'd be subject to that level of taxation. I don't know what that number is. I don't.
Well, I guess, and what are reasons that you wouldn't want to be annexed if their taxes are, for instance, much less than the Woodlands taxes?
Yeah, I'll give you a lot of reasons. One, I don't want HPD in the Woodlands. Okay, a lot of us, I moved here, Dennis, from a community where crime became a big issue, where insufficient attention was paid to policing, And I watched the character of that master plan community rapidly change. That is a lot of the reason why I ran for this office. It's because we need grown-ups. We need thoughtful grown-ups with the judgment to recognize what's really important. And getting public safety right is the absolute most important thing, I think. People take it for granted. The people in the Woodlands have rightly come to expect that they live in a safe community. And as long as I'm this board, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that's the case. And so I don't believe we would receive the same quality of policing from HPD as we would with our current arrangement, or if we incorporate as a city of the Woodlands. And so that is a big reason. I also don't want Metro up here. How does that benefit the Woodlands? In my view, it doesn't. I mean, everyone made a choice. Every one of us made a choice where to live. We were not compelled, for the most part, to live in the Woodlands. There are communities, I work in the city of Houston every day, 5 days a week. And if people want to live in a much denser place with HPD and Metro, they could do so. We all chose otherwise. There was a reason why we chose otherwise. And there may be a cost to that, Dennis, and yeah, I'm a conservative, but that is a cost I am willing to pay.
And do you know any stats on how many police per person there are in Houston compared to here?
I don't. I know that we have a lot of police per person in the Woodlands, and that is not something I'm looking to cut.
So help me understand, I'm getting a small slice of what you're like. Give me kind of the broad sense, what made you run, what drives you, what industry you're in. Give me kind of tell me about John kind of comment.
I grew up middle class in Houston, Bear Creek, mathematically inclined. I got a finance degree at UT, and was very close to taking a job at a big consulting firm on Wall Street, and then I applied to law school and got into Harvard Law School. You're a middle class kid and you get into Harvard, you go. Went up to Harvard, met my wife, but knew I was coming back home. This is hope. I've got a wealth of very, very large number of friendships here. My family's here. And, I've always been interested in public policy and sort of seeing what happened to my old neighborhood. And then, just being displeased with what's going on nationally. I saw a chance here to actually run for something, to make a difference. But to do so while I can still earn my living. I'm an energy lawyer. I build power plants, petrochemical plants, liquefied natural gas plants. I buy and sell commodities. I buy and sell oil and gas businesses. I enjoy that. And I saw a chance to serve while preserving my career and getting to see my kids every day. When I get home, my extraordinarily close with my 10-year-old daughter. She's a lot like me, but my 7-year-old son and my 3-year-old daughter still run full speed at the back door when I get home. That is a very nice thing. You can't put a price tag on that. And I can still serve and do that. I have no desire to go to Austin or Washington. I'm going to raise these kids. And here I can make a real difference. And I'm just convinced I can do better than these. I can do better than a lot of the elected officials. And we need thoughtful people with the maturity, the judgment, to focus on what's really important. Guys, excuse me, I have to take this. That's 6 calls in a row.
So we talked a little bit about transit. You seem to be against the boats.
Uh-huh.
It sounded like you're against the trolleys.
Yeah, so there's an existing trolley system that I am deeply skeptical of. Deeply skeptical of. There is something much worse that is being planned. And that is this, what it is, it's a town center specific bus service together with a $7 million transit center. I am entirely opposed. I mean, step back and think about this. We have people being taxed out of their homes. We have $45 oil. People we know are losing their jobs. There is real economic anxiety out there. And what is our board looking to do? they're looking to spend $7 million on the transit center, $1 million a year on this bus service entirely within town center. Why are we doing this? So I am absolutely opposed. This is indefensible. This is not a case of up against all transit. I'm not. We have a very successful park and ride system in the Woodlands, and I'm a big supporter of that.
So
This is wasteful.
So you mentioned you didn't want Metro up here, but you're willing to do park and ride.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's a different service.
Okay.
And it's successful. That park and ride service is vitally important to a lot of our residents. And Ken, it doesn't cost our taxpayers anything to do. Between the fare box and the federal grants, we are paying for that. Excuse me, not we. The combination of the federal grants and the fare box are covering all of those costs.
What is fare box?
It's $12 a day.
I don't understand what that means.
It's like a pass or something?
That's the cost to ride the park and ride.
Okay, the individual pays personally.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
FARE.
This is an estimate, I forgot to start the clock.
Got it.
But it's-
Pat, I give answers crisply.
Oh, yeah, Harvey, yeah.
Okay.
Is that, just to kind of tag on that, number 3 and then number 300, townships have stopped consideration of expensive experimental transit options, is that?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm referring to. And here's the thing, Larry, glad you pulled it up there. These are not the final cost. Here, it's very easy to predict what's going to happen if we do this. If we do this, it's going to be a big failure. We're going to spend, it's going to cost $1 million a year for the existing service. The Woodlands taxpayers alone are going to spend $626,000, and it's going to be a flop. And you know what politicians never do? They don't admit they're wrong. And so they're going to say the reason it failed is not because there wasn't a deep demand for the service, which there is not. They're going to say it failed because we don't have enough routes. The buses run too infrequently, and they're going to dump more and more money into this at a time where residents are getting taxed out of the house. We have $45 oil. This is, I cannot overstate how important it is to stop this.
Okay. Number 20.
Our residents
When is
aren't
that?
asking for this. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Our residents ask us for, they ask for better pools, better parks. They are not asking for this.
Is that to be voted on in this election, or is that something that's going to be before you guys?
No, so it was before us during the budget season. And what happened was by a 4-3 vote, it was, you go through a series of budget initiatives, and this was included in a 4-3 vote. Director Peggy Hausman, Gordy and I were the 3 no's. Then when we got to the budget, the day to actually vote on the budget as a whole, 2 of the directors were not there. And Gordy, Peggy, and I stripped it from the budget. And so it's very clear, if those of us that put the residents first win this election, I do not believe we're going to be paying for this.
Whose idea was that? to start
This is the
off with?
transportation committee. It's one of those
Mike
3.
Bass.
It's either 3 people on the transportation committee or Bruce Tuff, Mike Bass, and Jeff Long.
Yeah.
All 3 of them support this.
Okay.
This is a very bad idea.
Mhm.
Okay, I was going to do the,
Go ahead, go ahead.
number 20,
Give him a minute. Give him a-
Woodlands founder George Mitchell was probably the father of sustainable communities and founded international meeting here to that end. Tell us what you know about Agenda 21 and how that ties into the Woodlands sustainability.
I know very little about Agenda 21. I know a great, I saw the question and I've got a background in the energy business, and I've got a power background, which means you're about my age, you have a background in renewable energy as well. And within the renewable energy circles, people talk about sustainability, they're often talking about divestment from fossil fuels, which I absolutely oppose. Absolutely, I mean, I clearly oppose that. I've also, saw the question, there was a quite long book of George Mitchell's sustainability. I did not read it before answering this question. What I can tell you is that we all paid a premium to live in the Woodlands. And people should get what they paid for. People paid for a forested environment. Mr. Mitchell was very careful to build in that manner, and I think it's important that those of us that are elected to Woodlands recognize it. There's certainly folks that use the word sustainable to me. It's something that I oppose, but I fully support preserving the forested. The fact that we live in a forest. We all paid for that. We all bought into that. That should be preserved.
Okay. Question 6, 1 and 2 taken together. The question is, what are the 2 most pressing mobility issues in the Woodlands, and what is your preferred solution to each? You had mentioned in there that there are projects that could, the Woodlands receives funds needed for congestion relief projects, is not burdened by projects that make our traffic worse, like the misguided Woodlands Parkway extension. However, you are for the Kirkendall and Gosling bridges over the creek. Like Woodlands Parkway extension, won't that increase the traffic coming into the Woodlands, cause more congestion?
Yeah, it might, but that's the Woodlands. I mean, I was elected by people of the Woodlands. I represent each resident of the Woodlands equally. So, if your point is, would adding a new bridge to Gosling or Kirkendall perhaps increase traffic in Woodlands Parkway? It might. It might, but our residents, not politically connected real estate developers, our residents who live in Creekside are suffering. That is not safe at night as it is. And so, you've got an issue where this is a vital need of residents in Creekside. And frankly, anyone that travels on Kirkendall or Gosling as well, to the Woodlands. So there's a big, that's one of the arguments I heard during the May road bond. And the difference is just, I don't represent Magnolia. I don't have anything against the people of Magnolia, but Magnolia did not elect me. The Woodlands needs elected officials that will stand up for the Woodlands. And Creekside is every bit a part of the Woodlands as anyone else. It may not have the same look and feel. If it wasn't for the efforts of Matthew Burton, it would look there'd be even fewer trees there today than there are now. So, but Creekside is part of the Woodlands. And those of us that are elected in the Woodlands should absolutely support that.
Okay, with the remaining 30 seconds. The second part of that was that you wanted to expand lanes and improve intersections on 242. I was at a meeting with Charlie Riley at Alden Bridge a couple months ago after the bond got defeated. And he basically, when I asked him if he was going to do anything in the future with that, he said he was going to punt that to TxDOT, which means it may not get done. Is there anything that you can do to enhance that? In other words, at 242 between Gosling and 45, they've taken the shoulders in to make third lanes out of them. So in essence, you're taking away the emergency shoulder.
Correct.
What is it that you can do as a township person, living, since this is on the periphery of the township? But it's it's kind of a Charlie Riley thing and a TxDOT thing. What is it that you can do?
Well, you've got to apply pressure, and you can do one of two things. You can just sort of sit in your chair and just hope everything turns out okay, and never push back, or you can get aggressive with these folks. And let me give you a great example of where we were aggressive and it worked. Another one of these 4-3 votes on the Woodlands Township budget, where our board, when we sort of went through all the budget initiatives, we voted 4-3 to pay for 2 traffic lights in Alden Bridge. Traffic signals are not the responsibility of the Woodlands Township. They are a county function. We chose to do it anyways. What happened is a couple of directors didn't show up for the budget vote. We pulled that initiative. We pushed back on the county. What did? They did their job. They're going to pay for those signals now. And so you can't promise you're going to have success, but you know what? If you don't fight, you don't have a chance. And so, I can't look you in the eye and promise that I'm going to wave a magic wand and get this road built. But I guarantee you that if you don't ask, you're never going to get it.
what that's,
Well, I recognize that you're pretty interested in security and the police presence. If you were a candidate, I would ask if you intend to increase presence or if you intend to increase the budget allocation. But since you've already been in for a couple of years, have you done that? Have you increased the police officer budget? And is it now at a place you're comfortable with, or you think we need more?
We have 5 minutes left.
The answer is yes. I have increased, I have voted to support increased policing within the Woodlands.
In the past?
Yeah, over the last 2 years. And we've also asked and received 3 extra deputies allocated those from Montgomery County taxes. And so we absolutely, yes, have increased the police presence. I think that's a good. Now, what you need is you need candidates with judgment and maturity, but you don't want to just keep thoughtlessly throwing resources at this. In my judgment today, the Woodlands is a safe community. I think we are well policed. We have a deputy on patrol at all times in every village. When you talk to residents of the Woodlands, for the most part, they are happy. And look, we hear when response time is not what you hope for, we hear about it, but that is a very rare occurrence. And so I think what you need to do is you need to just assess. I think today's police presence is appropriate for what we have. If there is a big spike in crime that is not a one-off thing, but I would vote to spend more money on it. First, I'd push on the county and get them to do their job and provide more deputies here. But our residents aren't going to come. You can't cut corners with public safety. You can't. And so I think that, yes, we've provided more funds for policing. I think what we have today is actually just about right.
You have some deputies that are provided by Montgomery County and some that you hire by the
Correct.
township?
Correct.
They're also Montgomery County deputies?
Correct. We're in effect double pay.
So let me jump in on that, because liberty and safety compete with each other. And some have even said that if you focus on safety, you'll have neither.
I may have read that somewhere.
Yeah. And along with that, there's the idea that government entities are the most inefficient way to do anything. So, there's very few government entities that compete better than the private sector. So I guess I'd like to get your thoughts on those balances between liberty and safety and, government efficiencies versus the private sector.
Yeah, so there's a lot there. So first, my retired mom lives in the Woodlands. My retired in-laws live in the Woodlands. They want to be able to bring their groceries home at night and feel safe. They don't want to carry a weapon themselves. They want to know they're in a well-policed place. I think that's appropriate. And Brian, look, I share your view that government does not do things as a general matter particularly well. But one thing government does better than most of the functions is, think about our military. Our military is highly respected, highly regarded, sort of across the political spectrum. They do a good job. No police officer is perfect. Our police, for the most part, do a very good job. And so, for instance, do we need a water tax paid for by the Woodlands taxpayers so it shows up on a glossy brochure? Of course not. Okay, that's an example of something that if someone wants to fund that, that is their business, Brian, and let them do it. I just think policing is different. I think our residents rightly expect to live in a safe community, and to them, that means a well-policed community with professional.
So then what do you think about the lights, the cameras on the lights, on the red lights?
I don't believe we have those.
They're still there. They're not being
But they're not
being ticketed.
They're not operating.
We spent $5 million, from what I understand, and sitting somewhere. They're still being used, but for safety issues only, hopefully.
Those are textile cameras.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Who
but
owns them, but it doesn't matter who owns them. They're still.
You're getting at the sort of the issue between the surveillance state and an individual liberty.
Well, it's put up there for the purposes of safety, but is that all? I mean, is all that it's really used for?
I mean, I think, I believe the intent of doing that was for safety. I don't believe the intent behind putting those cameras there was to spy on us in the Woodlands. I think they would, for the most part, be very disappointed. There's not a lot of crime, there's not a lot of intrigue in the Woodlands. You know, is it, you know, it's just funny. You think back on when you were, you know, your child, there was this anonymity people had, and sort of no one knew where anyone went, but now every time you go through a toll booth, you take your picture, and it's just, I think the cat's now, was it the expression, the genie's out of the bottle here, Brian? I mean, I think that's, the reality is we're photographed many, many times each and every day. And if for instance, I thought, I don't think I do, but if I thought having another camera in the Woodlands was gonna make things appreciably safer, I'd probably support it. No, that's not the answer you're looking for, but that's, I mean, that has the benefit of being true then.
Yeah, 5 more minutes, or 4 more
Okay.
minutes.
That's a question,
Go ahead,
Professor.
you have time.
What's your position on Alpha and Omega forces, force patrols?
Yes, that's a great question. So, I think there is some use to them around the mall, around Waterway. But I'm one of the folks pushing, in fact, one of the most recent board meetings, their contract came up. It said it was a 5-year contract. It's not really a 5-year contract, it's a 90-day contract. And one of the questions I asked was, we're currently paying for Alpha and Omega all along the I-45 corridor within the boundaries of the Woodlands. And so, but not all of that is within the Woodlands Township. And so the question I asked is, I'd like to see a comparison between the crime stats where Alpha and Omega is in place within the Woodlands boundary compared with Shenandoah, Oak Ridge North, some of those other strip centers where there is no Alpha and Omega. And are we really getting anything for that? You know, the feedback we got is that's going to take some time. But I think if I don't want to prejudge it. If it turns out we're not receiving any appreciable benefit from safety, I'd probably scale back that portion of the contract. But I do think that it's part of the branding of the Woodlands. I think there's, you know, for instance, we have concerts. It's nice to have those guys there. They're expensive though. They're expensive, and I think there's, you know, I'm not let's cut every one of them, but my suspicion is that they're not preventing a lot of crime along the I-45 corridor. But you know, I don't want to be biased about this. Let's see what comes back.
How much is that annual contract?
It's about $2 million, I believe.
Is that something that's mainly benefiting some business owners at the expense of the tax?
It's certainly benefiting a business owner. It's a private business. It's not a that's not a government.
I don't mean the ones that provide the service. I mean the mall and all the business owners in the mall who, it's kind of an attraction for people to come to the mall in a sense.
It's what we're doing is in effect we're sort of paying for we're providing an incremental level of security for the mall, which you can argue the mall should pay for. I don't know. I tell you, I moved from a community where the crime got out of hand, and this is not someplace where I'm inclined to. You know, I think there are areas we can probably reduce the service, but I like having. I mean, it's important that people feel safe when they go to that mall. That mall is the biggest sales tax driver within the Woodlands, and it's one of those things that's hard to quantify, though. You know, because we've never pulled it away from the mall.
Have you asked them all if they pay for it?
I haven't. I believe that's a great question. I mean, we're starting to push back in that regard, but that gets Dennis. That's great. That gets to sort of the broader issue, right?
What it means to them, yeah.
Yeah, because you expect that, and the same thing with pavilion. You know, if they're gonna be there and that's part of the Woodlands, and it's primarily in the town center, keep it, you know, centric to the town center. And when you need real law enforcement there that, you know, has arrest capability, that'd probably be a good time to call on it. Surely this evaluation is gonna surface that, I'm presuming.
Well, I'm very curious what it comes up with. But this is an example of what happens with the push, okay? You can just sit up there and just sort of smile and rubber stamp everything that's going on, or you can ask hard questions. And when you don't get the answers you like, you can start making a fuss. You know, I've taken the latter tack, and I certainly am going to have no shortage of political opponents because of it. And people, it's just the way it is, okay? If you want to question aspects of the status quo, there's going to be pushback.
We don't know anything about that.
Yeah. I never heard any of that.
That's kind of new in the county, isn't it?
Well, this is the Woodlands.
Well, that wraps up the Q&A session, so if you'd like 5 minutes to close.
Well, why don't you, politicians love to talk, that's sort of not my style. If you guys have other questions, why don't you ask me? There's nothing in particular I want to convey, but
I got one.
Okay.
Who's your favorite candidate for president right now, as it stands with the remainder?
well, I'm gonna, it's funny, I have not written a check this season yet. I'm gonna apply the Buckley rule. And so I'm gonna support whoever I deem to be the most electable conservative, but I haven't decided yet who I'm writing a check for.
Well, you've read about checks, huh?
I have,
Yeah.
I have.
What about
Oh.
pipelines?
Pipelines?
Bike lanes?
Oh. Well, I support pipelines. I build pipelines.
That was, yeah.
So, bike lanes is an unfortunate term because it means something different to everyone else. This is what I support, is that my suspicion is it's going to be relatively inexpensive to address the protruding curves of the Woodlands. What that is you've got a shoulder, sometimes a curb will actually jut out all the way into the shoulder. It'll force cyclists onto the roadways. Let's see what that costs, but that is something I tend to support. Some of our shoulders are a bit in dire need of repair. I support that. What I oppose is putting big concrete barriers along the roadways of the Woodlands. I oppose removing medians to provide for these concrete barrier bike lanes. I oppose narrowing lanes to make room for the bike lanes. But you talk to some cycling enthusiasts and they would say, the answer I just gave means I support bike lanes. To find bike lane, right? It's not an easy thing to do, but I tell you what, I am concerned about the safety of our cyclists. And I am willing to spend some money to address that, but I'm not willing to really change the character of our streetscape to do it. But I think there's some sort of good, smart governance things you can do to help on the safety front. Look, you're just itching to ask me a question.
It's probably
You're doing
wait,
good.
it's probably wait for the camera to go off.
You're doing good.
Anybody else?
Your wording did catch my eye. I cut the tax rate from 29 to 23. So were you the swing vote or?
No?
You and Obama? I did.
Oh. I don't want to nationalize this election, but I am comfortable saying that I did not vote for the president. That will probably surprise no one in this room.
I'm just talking, right?
Neither did we.
No, so I actually wanted to cut the rate a little below 23 cents. I didn't have the votes. I mean, what we did when we went through this expensive experimental transit center, I wanted to take that $626,000 a year. Because that's a recurring expense that we were going to have. I wanted to take that $626,000 a year and cut the tax rate from 23 cents to 22.65, 22.7 cents. I didn't have the votes. But one of the best things I did on the board was my first year, they started talking about the tax rate. Now, I'm not the kind, it's funny, am I President Obama? When you run for office, the reality is you have to call a little bit of attention to yourself. My style is sort of the exact opposite, Brian. I don't particularly like being in the newspapers. I want to live in a well-governed place. I want to live in a safe place. So one of the things I'm most proud of on this board was my first year on the board, we were discussing the tax rate. And they proposed something a lot less than, we cut it from 29.4 to 25. At the time, they're talking about 26 something. I just looked over and just shook my head no. It was never in the paper, never anything, but everyone knew. I wasn't on board with that. And look, this is a real tax cut. I mean, you guys interview candidates, you see them play this game with taxes all the time. Look at me. Home values went up 10%, I cut your tax rate 1%. I'm a taxpayer champion. This is a real tax cut. What this means is that at the end of my term, people paid less money to the Woodlands Township than they did at the beginning. So I'm proud of that, and everyone on the board knows where I stood.
But how did you make it sound like you did it single-handedly?
No, I've got, Gordy's a real ally, Peggy's a real ally, and if you look at this, the first budget we passed unanimously 7-0. Had they not cut that tax rate to such an extent, it would not be a 7-0 vote. This budget we just passed 4-1. You know, I wanted a greater reduction. I didn't have the votes. But everyone knew where I stood.
Well, what is the story on the money that was or was supposed to be given to the customs facility at the airport?
Yeah, you know, actually, I could have handled that better. We have a real problem in the Woodlands, in that we are funding, I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
We're funding roughly 38% of the county's budget. We're receiving far less than that in services. And, you know, this was a chance. We had a newly elected judge, you know, a lot of new members of the court. They came to us, as they often have in the past, and asked us for something. And I made a decision, which I had to do over again, I'd do it differently, to vote to provide that $600,000 to us. And I learned from that. I learned from that. We saw something really interesting there. We authorized that money, and we put a couple of very easy to achieve items there. We said we wanted the right to name it, we wanted a board seat. The county told us no. What message does that send? The message that sends to me is the county views us not as a partner, they view us as a piggy bank. And I learned from that. When this May road bond came by, I was out front, I was public, and you know, I'm pretty out front and public with my opposition to.
That's the same way they view us.
Yeah, I bet.